see here. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. This is the Wizard Podcast, episode 15. Turn off the computer. Had a really good week. Figured I'd get a little colorful because I feel a little lighter this week. I think sometimes you can work on something for years and you dig and you dig and you dig. You get deeper, you get deeper, you get deeper. And sometimes you think you know stuff and it turns out you don't. Or sometimes it thinks like you think that you know a lot more than you really truly do. So some really interesting things have coalesced in the past past few weeks. And as I'm speaking, I realize I don't want to go into those specific things right now, and maybe they'll just be expressed by how I communicate. But maybe just a sense of peace, maybe a sense of honesty, maybe a sense of just being real, being as real as you can be, and just allowing yourself to be. And been trying to really put that into practice, just to be. And to be where I'm at, to be with who I'm with, and to realize that it's interesting. I was thinking about this week. I talked to a lot of people about this. A lot of people promote being in the present moment, and I talk about it quite a lot. If my voice is shaky, it's because I have a little red wine here, and I don't really drink anymore. And for some reason, I decided to have a couple glasses of wine tonight, so I might hesitate a little bit. We might have to slow it down a little bit, but that's okay. It's Friday night. I deserve some wine, damn it. And so do you. So anyway, I was talking to clients how I think I use mindfulness a lot in therapy. A lot of therapists do. A lot of clinical psychologists do. It's become, 15 years ago, it was just barely getting started. 20 years ago, it was just barely getting started in the psychology world to use mindfulness and meditation. In graduate school for me, there was one or two people that were kind of promoting it and talking about it, but it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. I think a lot of students in clinical programs now, actually across the board, medicine, psychology, meditation and mindfulness has become such a ubiquitous aspect of just our culture. And I think for anyone that feels threatened by that, just understand it's a tool. You can be a mindfulness-based Christian if you want. Things do not have to be looked upon as threatening. You don't have to keep telling yourself that story that this thing is going to take something away from you. It's just, these are tools. What is mindfulness? It's being able to observe your thoughts, your feelings, the sensations of your body objectively and openly, and accept them for what they are. To listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to what it's telling you, and to realize just because your mind's telling you something or just because your body is telling you something doesn't mean it's accurate, doesn't mean you need to act it out. Sometimes you can just feel it. Here's how I look at emotions. Emotions are information. They're data. They're sources of information. When your body has an emotional or a sensational response, like a pulse, to something you perceive as negative, rather than assuming it's correct and whatever's going on around you is actually at fault for why you feel what you feel, listen to what your body's telling you and realize it's a source of information, but it's just a source of information. It's not necessarily the truth. It's your job to take that information in, to observe it, to notice it, to make sense of it, and then to slow down, accept it, feel it, and then try to make a wiser choice about how you want to handle the present moment. You can still be pissed off if you want. You can still be anxious if you want. But you can do it more deliberately, and it turns out when we're doing it more deliberately, we don't necessarily feel like being angry all the time, or feel like being anxious all the time, or feel like brooding all the time, or just feel like thinking all the time, being lost in thought. You are what you practice. We are what we practice. You practice being angry, you're going to get good at it. You practice being anxious, you're going to get good at it. Practice being an asshole, you're going to be an asshole. You practice love, you're going to act out love. You practice mindfulness, you're going to learn how to be observant and accepting of your mind and body and the actions and behaviors of others. I would say your empathy is going to go up, and your ability to act is going to go up. Your strength is going to go up. You'll actually be more decisive, more focused, more confident, because you will learn the difference between who you really are beneath it all, in your soul, your spirit, your core, and who you think you are because of the way your body is responding in the present moment. And you're telling yourself a story in accordance with those responses. Your body reacts and it says, that's bad, that's wrong, those people are bad, they talk funny, they look funny, they're on the other side. So when I was talking about earlier is that what I've learned is that in order to be mindful, you also have to trust yourself. A lot of people don't like the present moment. A lot of people don't want to be in the present moment because that requires awareness of what's actually happening. It's actually pretty profound when you think about it. How many people avoid the present moment, meaning they're avoiding what's happening in their mind, avoiding what's happening in the body. They don't want to feel it. So what do? Denial. All forms of denial, projection. They cover it up somehow. What they want to do is energetically push it away. And then you feel it, don't you? You feel it on your body. You feel that rejection of your reality. You feel the denial. They have to deny their reality in order to survive, probably developed very early in their life as a survival mechanism. Sometimes you have to deny your reality if your reality is just so horrible, so terrible, so obnoxious. So you learn to push back, but then we learn to do that in adulthood, and we push back energetically. And you feel that denial, and it's covering up the truth in the moment. What is that? It's simply to observe what is happening in the present moment without filtering it, without seeing it through this lens of this crazy story. You don't have to tell yourself a story about what you're feeling. You don't have to tell yourself a story about what's happening in your mind. You can just notice it, observe it, use it as information, and then you will act more strongly. You will act. You know what's interesting, just being this is in my brain in this moment, I was thinking of a friend of mine who's a Green Beret and grew up with him in Battle Lake, Minnesota. And when I talk with him, or when I talk with other guys like him, I'm always impressed by how direct and straightforward they are, how clear they are. And that's because once you've done things like that, you learn. You've been through a great deal of suffering. You've been through a great deal of training. You've stripped away all the bullshit, and you see the truth within. There's something spiritual about training. There's something spiritual about experiencing war or conflict or suffering. It doesn't have to just be war. We all can turn our suffering into wisdom. So I've always appreciated, I think that's why a lot of these dudes are my friends, that there's just something very direct and clear and straightforward. There's so much potential in our veterans. So much potential. Got to help them learn to tell their stories, to listen to their stories, to receive their stories, to understand that their stories matter. To let them come home to a culture that understands the role they played from a mythological level and welcomes them home as our warriors. Whether you fully agree with it or not, they're still a warrior class, and the warrior class used to be celebrated, used to be honored. Certainly people pay lip service to thank you for your service and, do some stuff at an NFL game or whatever. But how many people have sat down and said, tell me your story? Just, I want nothing from you. Just tell me your story. Let's have a beer. Tell me your story. Let's smoke some pot. Tell me a story. I just want to hear. You'd be amazed. You sit back and listen, and you walk next to someone, whether it's a veteran or someone else. You just walk next to them. You don't get your ego involved. You don't need a pat on the back. You don't need to actually rescue them. They don't need your rescuing. You just need to be a human being and humble yourself. Get out of your own way. Sit down. Listen. Say, hey, tell me your story. What'd you do over there? What's on your mind? Let's talk. Where'd you grow up? Anyway, so I really appreciate the straightforward dynamic of these dudes. A lot of people, I think, they interpret it as like, oh, you're being an asshole. No, it's just being really clear. I was proud the other day. I had this attorney I was speaking to that is kind of a known bully in the county. And he told me he never wants to work with me professionally again. And it's because I was very clear and direct with him, and he did not like that. He wanted to be in control. He wasn't used to someone just not reacting to him and just being clear and direct. He said, you sound mean. I'm just being clear and direct, man. Just being clear and direct. Honest. I'm giving you my honesty. That's what I said to him. I'm giving you my honesty. So back to what I've been trying to say 3 times now. In order to be in the present moment, you also have to be able to experience the present moment fully, which means you have to be able to simply notice and observe and accept what's coming out of you in the moment, what you're what's the data, right? It's this thing is buzzing, this body. What's going on in your mind? What's going on in your body? What's going on in your heart? Can you look at it objectively without having to turn it into anything? Say, oh, I notice my mind is having this thought. This thought happens to be really dark and negative, but you know what? It's just a thought. Interesting. I wonder why my mind went there. I wonder what that's telling me. Oh, interesting. My body hurts. My chest hurts. Just listen to it, observe it, accept it. So you got to be able to do that in the present moment. And you have to be able to trust yourself to follow through in the present moment. This is a much more practical part. Everyone's always thinking into the future. What's next? What's next? Oh, shoot. What do I got to do? Oh, I forgot something. I know I forgot something. What's on my schedule? Who do I need to text? What do I do 10 minutes from now? I got to go to the bathroom. Just chatter, chatter, chatter unnecessarily because we're constantly worried about fucking up the future. Constantly worried about fucking up the future. The present moment is a really good place to be when you learn to fully accept it. And it's a practice. I'm working on practice. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm saying I try to be there. And I try to bring myself back there over and over and over again. Just note, oh, my mind's over here, come back. Oh, I'm getting lost in feelings. I'm starting to tell myself a story. Oh, I'm starting to feel hurt. We start to say things like, I'm depressed. I got my depression. No offense to anyone out there that speaks that way. I think everyone has learned to say, oh, I got my depression, my anger, my pain. Just understand that when you speak to yourself that way, the way your brain works, your intellectual brain, your problem-solving brain, your prefrontal cortex, we could call it, it's talking and it's saying, my pain, my depression, I'm so depressed, I'm so angry, I'm so hurt. I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore. I can't hold on. Guess what? Your limbic brain is listening. Your amygdala is listening. The part of you that is designed to keep you safe is listening, and it's designed to work automatically. It listens to data that comes in from the outside world through our senses and from our internal world, wherever information comes from. We don't really know. We try to know. We don't fully know. We don't understand memory very well. We, meaning scientists. I'm not one of them. I'm just talking about we as a field, the medical field, psychological field, whatever. We have ideas about this. We have theories about this. There's a lot of good stuff. But the truth is, we just don't know that much stuff. So I listened a lot to my internal world. And I kind of think of it as like navigating or exploring. I like to explore my internal world and see how my mind works and how my body works. And rather than looking at my emotions, which I do sometimes, my ego gets caught up in it, but rather than looking at my emotions as this real bad thing, I just try to listen to what they're telling me. It turns out a lot of times they tell me about how I'm perceiving the present moment. And they tell me that I'm perceiving the present moment from a place of injury. What's interesting is as you learn to quiet that, as you learn to get out of your mind, as you learn to quiet the mind, because the mind tells you a story, and you start to listen to your gut, you start to listen to your body, you start to observe it, and the more you don't react to everything, you just listen to it, the less your body actually reacts to stuff out there. Anxiety goes way down, depression goes way down. You start to listen to what's the wisdom of your mind, your body particularly, and then you can use your mind to start creating. You can start using your mind to use that data to navigate your world much more deliberately. But that's really hard if you can't trust yourself to execute in the present moment. I've had several clients speaking to this 15-year-old young woman this week. Such a nice young woman, and she is terrified of being in the present moment, terrified of executing in the present moment, terrified of looking someone in the eye or speaking her truth or even trying to figure out her truth. And that's not just her. Man, being in high school, you feel like you're under the microscope all the time, especially now with social media. Kids are just so overwhelmed with information. Their brains are working all the time, and they're on social media all the time and on their phones and computers all the time and TikTok and all that stuff that I don't understand. And they're overwhelmed. Their limbic brain's listening, and their limbic brain is saying, holy shit, there's a lot of data coming in. I'm overwhelmed. And oh man, all these people are going to reject me and I'm not good enough and I should just shut down in this present moment because it's overwhelming. So we avoid, we procrastinate, we feel powerless. Powerlessness is depression. Depression is really this sense of, I feel overwhelmed, I can't do it anymore, I need to escape. Oh, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed. Oh. And depression can be very legitimate. I'm not delegitimizing depression. In fact, I'm actually saying depression is a signal, it's information, it's a piece of information. It's telling you that you are perceiving your life as from a place of powerlessness. Perhaps you're perceiving the present moment as a powerless thing. I had an experience today with my wife that I had to sit down and meditate for half an hour. And that's what I do. When I have a real powerful feeling, that what's interesting is when you do start really clearing your mind and clearing the space and you feel much more at peace in yourself, when you do have a powerful reaction, you really listen to it and you pay attention to it and you work on it. So I had a really powerful moment or experience, I guess you could say, of feeling powerless, feeling unheard today. And I sat down and I meditated for about a half an hour. And in that meditation, what I do is I try to really listen to what I'm feeling, not push it away, not deny it. I think sometimes when people are learning meditation or mindfulness, they think it's like, okay, stay away thoughts. I've got to get these thoughts. These thoughts are just a waste of my time. No, I listen to them. I listen to what they're telling me and then I let them go. I listen to what my body's telling me and try not to get so wrapped up in it. So my mind and my body today were feeling denied, you could say. So I meditated and I did the opposite of what all those responses are trying to do. Rather than put it away, rather than deny it, rather than lash out at her, because that's not going to help anything. I set a boundary, but rather than lashing out or being mean or angry or projecting my own shit onto her, just saying, hey man, give me a moment. Here's my boundary. Give me a second. And then going and feeling it and listening to it and being like, well, what the hell is this telling me? Yes, I feel injured. But is it really accurate? Am I really reacting to this accurately? Turns out Parts of it are real clear and accurate. Parts of it are overreacting. Parts of it are being dramatic. Parts of it are just being injured. But then I can go back to her half an hour later and say, okay, here it is. Here's how I see this. Here's how I feel this. Here's what I notice. Here's the story I'm telling myself. Here's what I need from you. And just be real clear and matter of fact. And then you can own it. And then you can set a boundary. And you can really own that boundary. And you can even own the consequences that might come with it. Because sometimes when you set a boundary, you have to suffer the consequence that people may want to step away from you or move away from you. But you only set boundaries when you feel like someone is not being conscientious about you or your perspective. You don't really need to set boundaries with people that tend to be conscientious. And I don't mean to say that my wife is not conscientious, because she can be quite conscientious. In this particular moment, not so much. But a lot of times she can. So you have to be able to trust yourself. You have to be able to notice and observe and feel what's happening. You have to be able to not push it away, not project it, just to essentially be in the present moment fully, to notice, to feel, to observe. Yes, it might be painful, but then you listen to that pain, and then that pain starts telling you, and then you start, the real key with that, if you're having a real hard time being in the present moment, legitimately, like I talked to this guy this week. He served in the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines in Ramadi in 2006, in Fallujah 2005. He served with several other guys that I'm close friends with. Justin, my friend Justin Carlisle, one of them. And just the profound pain. And we're talking about writing. And I do this thing sometimes with clients called Take Back Your Life Story. And what's really interesting about how our brain works is that this is really important. If you feel like I'm mumbling, just really listen to this part. If you're someone who's been through a lot of trauma, and all of us have, just by definition, by existing, we all have some form of trauma. We all have pain. We've all been telling ourselves a story. We all have memories. We have memories in our body. We have memories in our mind. So you can deny those memories. You can deny that stuff. That painful shit you're carrying around with you. You can deny it. You can stuff it away and push it down. And I know that you have to sometimes in order to survive. Sometimes you have to do it for a period of time. Sometimes you drink it away, you smoke it away, you anger it away. You just completely deny it. Just understand that you're doing that consciously. Your mind is consciously pushing it away, but that doesn't make it disappear. Your brain is still accessing it. Your brain is still working on it. That's what we call the unconscious. That's what we call the shadow. It's just shit that you've pushed out of awareness because it's too scary. But guess what? It's still influencing how you perceive the world. It's those pulses in your body. It's really the shadow, the unconscious. It's right there for you to listen to. It's the pulses. It's this feeling of contempt when a certain person walks in the room. It's a feeling of anger. It's a feeling that consumes you, and suddenly you're angry, and you're just that angry guy walking around and no one understands. And I've been that guy before. Definitely been that brooder before. So if you're carrying around those memories, and all of us are to a certain extent, but if you're carrying it around and you're not expressing it, you're not releasing it, you're not exorcising it, then it's going to influence your behavior whether you know it or not. It's an absolute fact. It's not even really debatable. Unless you're practicing every day mindfulness, meditation, observation, whatever word you want to attach to it, it's going to affect you. So you can keep living with that pain. You can keep carrying it. You can keep suffering. You're suffering with the pain. You might as well go through the suffering of experiencing it and processing it and talking about it and releasing it. Yes, it will be painful. But here's the deal. for some reason, a bit of a mystery. I can explain it to the best of my ability. When you bring something into conscious awareness and you put it into words, whether speaking it, whether expressing it through art, whether writing it down, whether punching it in a punching bag, whatever it is, when you say, oh, I recognize this shit, I feel this shit, I'm going to let this stuff come to the surface and I'm going to get it out somehow. My thought is, I think the most accurate way to think of that is, people call it a catharsis. I think it's a release of energy. I think there's a spiritual component to it. It's a total release of energy, an acceptance of energy, an acceptance of the pain you've been through. And just very pragmatically, you're teaching the limbic brain that that stuff is no longer threatening to you. That's really, really important to understand. You are teaching your emotional brain and your body that that stuff is no longer threatening to you because you've taken it from the unconscious pit of darkness, which is just, you've taken it from being wantonly out of awareness and you've brought it into awareness, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh shit, I have a lot of pain. That really hurts. Man, I regret doing that. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I think I want to love. I think I want to love myself. So I do this thing called Take Back Your Life Story, and it's doing that. It's taking the muck and putting it on paper, and then you get to look at it and say, I own this story, and I can hold this story, and I'm taking it back. And then you can release it by sharing it with people. And then you're connecting with them. See how we can create community through art, through sharing, through being, through accepting people's stories, through creating programs to help people create their stories, through art. Oh crap, we lost that camera. I've been sitting here yapping at you this whole time and I lost the other camera. Well, that's too bad. Anyway, I was pointing at the painting on the wall because that's an example of a collaboration I did with a veteran who went to the Karengal Valley in Afghanistan, 2007. Whoop. We had an emergency. I was recording and I heard Alice's voice. What happened? Do you know what happened?
My finger hurts.
Yeah. Alice likes to suck her 2 fingers when she sleeps, right? And she's done the same thing every night since she was a baby. And her fingers get a little sore. Let me see them.
No, this one.
So she was trying to sleep and she came out and she said, my fingers hurt. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah? This one better?
No.
So if we put a Band-Aid on it, will it be better?
No, I want
Oh, some Vaseline. Okay. We'll put some Vaseline on. You know what, everybody? I think this is a really good place to stop tonight. I sure hope this is actually recording. You know what? The whole gist of the whole thing tonight was simply, if you can be honest with yourself, if you can be honest in the present moment, if you can listen to what your mind and body are telling you without pushing it away, then you can heal through a lot of stuff. You don't have to keep telling yourself that story. And if you can find a way to express the muck, just find a way to do it. If you're one of those dudes out there who's never going to go ask for help, you're just never going to ask for help, and you're not going to go to the VA, or you're not going to go to the doctor, you're not going to talk to anyone, you know what? Talk out loud to yourself. Start writing. Start yelling. Express it in a way that you're getting it out even better, way, way, way better, because there's something about sharing and releasing. Start recording it, start writing it, start expressing it, and start telling it to someone. Start telling it to someone, and you know what? That will help you feel lighter. That will help you connect with others. It'll help you reconnect with yourself. It'll help you reconnect with others. All that deep down shadow stuff, that dark stuff, you'll feel lighter because it'll be released. it's not beneath the surface anymore, influencing how you see and feel and react to the world. It's just, it's released. And I know there were a bunch of little tangents I went on that I wanted to go back to, but this little girl here, I'm going to go help her out, get her finger feeling better. This was a great night. I didn't know where we were going to go tonight. I try to never make a plan. I try to just follow what I'm feeling, follow what I'm thinking. And Alice, you want to show them your bunny? What's Bunny? This is Bunny. This is the best bunny in the world. Yeah, it's Bunny. So this is the Wizard Podcast, episode 15. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski, and this is, who are you?
Alice.
What? Alice. This is Alice. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Take care. I love you. Bye.